Well, welcome to the podcast, Innate Secrets. So, what I want to look at, and in fact, the theme of this month is nurture. Now, if you recall, last month we talked about attraction, and attraction being attractive to those around us, attractive to clients, attractive to customers, attractive to mates, attractive to other people, and the ways in which we can do that. So that brings people to us. That brings people into our world, and then we have the opportunity to provide nurture to people, because nurture is the way in which we can allow people to grow and develop and still stay in our presence. Otherwise, we can attract people in and then people leave again. So this is about nurture in many forms, and I want to keep it quite succinct, but we'll go through the next month touching on one aspect of this a week, and the first chapter of this is going to be on cultivation. So let's look a little bit into nurture, and then we'll develop that in the context of cultivation. This is a place where those who suspect they're innately wise, brilliant and powerful come to learn how to transform their lives, one cognition, one realization, and one blinding flash of the obvious at a time. We are the innovators, the record breakers, the world makers and creators of all kinds. We supersede the suppressive worldview of mass ignorance and awaken the strength within. We are waking up to our innate secrets. My name is Dr. Mark Postles, and welcome to the Innate Secrets podcast. So there's an ongoing debate. In fact, it's probably not a debate anymore. It's pretty well sorted that there's two aspects to human beings. One being the effects of nature, the genetic determinism. The fact that the genes carry all the information needed for our expression, and the genes will play out as they play out, and we're subject to those genes, and we don't really have any say in it, and therefore the genes determine who we are. So that's an older viewpoint, and it's known as genetic determinism. That's where the gene plays out and you get sick, or the gene plays out and you have a certain temperament, or the gene plays out and you die early or late, or whatever it is. And that's half of the story. In fact, it's not even half of the story. It's a very small part of the story, in fact. The other part of it is nurture. The other part of it is how is our environment impinging? How is our environment supporting? How is our environment affecting the way that the gene plays out? And so that's known as epigenetics. So epigenetics are the epi being around the gene. So those things that are around the gene are determinants of that gene playing out. It's like you could have a song on your phone, and it lays there, you don't hear it, it doesn't yell at you, it doesn't start playing by itself. It'll wait till the environment stimulates it, and then it plays. And the environment obviously is you deciding you want to play that song. So that's the nature of our self. We're not necessarily predetermined to do certain things. We have this determination within us, but it gets played out by our decision, our actions, and our environment. So nurture then is an important part, and it allows for the shaping of us as an individual, from a child on up through. Nurture allows for groups to function in certain ways. Nurture allows for civilizations to function in certain ways. So it has quite profound effects and quite profound relationships on it. So with nurture by definition is caring and encouragement and support, and it's given to someone or something while they're growing. I mean, it's ongoing, I would suggest, and as long as we're getting nurture, we are growing. There's plenty of cases where people haven't had nurture and they've regressed. So that's a sort of a given that as long as we're getting nurture, we do grow and we become more of who we're capable of becoming. So there's a comfort that comes with nurture, and there's a security that comes with nurture, and so that's why nurture is such a critical thing. It's important to feel loved. It's important to feel connected with. It's important to have someone or something playing out to allow us to be more of who we are. Now, nurture can come in many forms, not just in a caring, loving touch. Nurture is the way in which we have things structured, and structure affects function. So the structure of a house could be said at one level to be nurture. The way the house is laid out, the ergonomics of the house, the energy flow of the house, either is supportive or not as supportive of human beings and maybe animals and plants and so forth. And so it can create nurture or maybe not as much nurture. So an organisation of any system gives nurture. And so we'll have a look at that in the context of its more of an operative thing. So how do we create nurture? And I want to go to that in just a second. So nurture then has huge ramifications on human beings, from our growth and development, the growth of our children, the way that they grow up is responsible or is affected by nurture to a huge degree. That you can have 3 kids the same genetic background, and yet their perception of their nurture and the various incidents of nurture or lack of nurture throughout their lifetime form who they are. The sense they make of the world based on whether they felt nurtured or not has huge ramifications. So there's a massive part for nurture to play, and for us to be aware of nurture so that we're always mindful of the effect that we're having on a person by the environment we create for them. So in this context then, and this particular discussion, I wanted to bring it down this week to talk about cultivation. So this is an element, a fundamental element of nurture. And cultivation is a way of developing. It's a way of bringing about the best in something. We want to cultivate something and bring it out of that person. And this is about seeing the best in people from the beginning. So having a vision of this amazing individual inside maybe a not as perfect body or mind at this point in time. And so working with people as if they are, which is true, magicians, incredible, intelligent, generous, gorgeous people on the inside. And our job is to tend to the weeds, so to speak, the things that detract from that, and cultivate that person or cultivate that group of people, be it, say, a team or in a relationship or a family, or at a much bigger level in terms of communities and nations, is to cultivate the structure of that so that then we can have a system that is truly nurturing. So when people problems show up, when criminality shows, when a lack of organisation within people's brains and within their minds and emotions shows up, it very rarely is a people problem. Deming, who went to Japan after the Second World War to help in the reconstruction, was a real systems guy, and he made a statement that 80% of people problems are actually systems problems. Now, why would he say that? I mean, a person does something that doesn't go with the flow or breaks the rules, how could that be a people problem, a systems problem? Sorry. And so that's it's a really good question. But if you start to look at the way people work, they like to have a step-by-step process to follow. And if you've got some parameters there, and if you've got boundaries, and I've seen this with our children over the years, if they will keep pushing for boundaries, and if they don't get them, they keep pushing. And when they do get them, then they feel somewhat satisfied until the time comes to push the boundaries again. So I think people work better when they know where they are, when they know which way is up, when they know who's in control of what, and when they have their responsibilities and they're accountable, and that's all nurture. That is the nurturing effect of a cultivation of an infrastructure. So people work really well with that because it becomes predictable. So cultivating an environment, be it in your own life, with the things on your office desk and the things you do during the day, and the business you may run or the home that you may run, having the environment set to give some sort of predictability. Sure, it's important to allow for spontaneity, but in fact, I think what happens, and we've noticed this in our office environment and the practice, that the more structured and the more organized things are, and the more accountable people are under the surface, the more we can be spontaneous and flippy above the surface, so that we can have fun and things can look like a totally disorganized show, except that underneath everything's been done right. And so that allows people to express themselves at a much higher level. So having an environment that has a structure in terms of systems and process is a nurturing environment. It allows people to feel safe when they come into that environment. They know what they've got to do, where to go. There's people there who have the process down, so that then they're free to be spontaneous on the surface and free to connect and free to have a laugh, and they're running the system in an unconsciously competent way. So they do have the attention units to spend with those who are the guests or those who are the clients, and so forth. So the cultivation of this is a process of firstly having an idea of what you want, what your primary business is. And this is in any relationship, in any home. It's like, what do we stand for? What are our rules? What are the things that we have as non-negotiables within our world? And so we follow those, and that's our culture, it's our identity, and it's the way in which we do our life in our particular family or tribe or group. And so that's set up, and so the adherence to that then becomes a recognition of being part of that culture. And a person who breaks that, who defies it, then is a person who's more likely to be put onto the outside of that culture. So they won't be included in it. So whether it's right or wrong doesn't really matter. It's relative to the culture itself. So you have different religions and organizations and political variations that have very, very different viewpoints and a different environment, different systems and different process within that, but that's part of the bonding. So ritual becomes an important part of creating nurture. And we cultivate that. We cultivate people to work within that, and then they can be part of it. If they choose not to work within it, then they're outside of it. So there's always a choice there for people within any group. And and as I say, without judgment, without saying that's right or wrong, because who is one person to say that another culture is wrong? We cannot say that. We must recognise that there's a culture there, and it's cultivated, it's determined, it's very consciously driven, and is that for you? Is that for us? Is that for me? Is that for the way that we want to bring our kids up, or have our company function, or have our sports team work? So the point of this is that you have the ability to cultivate your nurturing environment, and think about it. Think about the fact that the systems drive people. People don't. People will work in the system. They work on a system, but 80% of people problems are systems problems, and that then allows us to have a structure where we lower the pressure and noise. When there's a system in place, we're not having to make it up as we go. We don't have all the stuff going on in our heads, and we know what we've got to do next. And so that then lowers that internal dialogue. It lowers the pressure and noise that takes place in a chaotic system, in a system that's not producing nurture. And so it's a good example of this actually with and this was done quite a period of time ago, but we see effects of this in our day-to-day activities, and that was what's called the Hawthorne effect, and that's where they showed that just by changing the lighting in a building, productivity went up. So they changed the lighting to more optimum, obviously, and productivity went up. There have been studies since then to verify that, and they've found a productive area, and then they've changed the lighting around, just dimmed it or put lights in different places, and productivity's gone down. So there's a relationship there to an environmental factor, and I think we see this in countries that experience long winters. There's a seasonal affective disorder which kicks in the Northern Hemisphere about March, and people don't go to Portugal or Spain. They tend to go a bit stir crazy and get grumpy and so forth. So there's a relationship there to the environment affecting who it is that we are, how it is that we express. So the take home message from this, and this will be the challenge to you, is to look at the environment that you want to cultivate. Look at the way you want to nurture your people, the way you want to nurture yourself, and create an environment which includes, the timings, the layout of the place, and I'm thinking physical environment here at the moment. If it's a relationship environment, the respect for each other, the times when you spend agreed time together and apart, and the times when certain things get handled or certain things get done. And so it might seem a bit sort of anal, but it's so powerful in bringing about cohesion, mutual trust, and rapport at a very, very, very strong level. So people open up when they feel nurtured, and in their language, and that may be very, very different to yours, and that you can cultivate that. And so look at whereabouts maybe you've been dropping the ball in terms of cultivating a nurturing environment, maybe at home, maybe at the office, the practice, or the business, or the sports team, where people aren't being maybe acknowledged, aren't being sorted. They're having to think their way through stuff every time instead of following the system. Think about the ways in which you can enhance that and apply that over this next week, and notice how much more nurtured those around you feel, and you feel too, because you've done a nurturing act, and that affects your physiology. So this week's about cultivation. Cultivate a nurturing environment, and we'll see how that pans out in a very short period of time that you notice perceivable changes around you in terms of yourself and others, and your ability to be more productive and be more content. And this, you may just decide, okay, I'm going to clean my garage out, I'm going to clean my desk off, I'm going to change the lighting around, or maybe put some music on. So very, very simple things, but watch what happens when you do that. So have fun with it, and I'll catch up with you on the next podcast. So my apostles, be brilliant. Let us show you how to fire your brain in ways that serve you so that you can be confident, connected, and bring joy and passion into what you do every day. Get a free copy of my book, The Innate Model. Go to theinnatemodel.com/free book.